Welcome back to the Root to Rise Seeds for the Soul podcast. I'm your host, Meg Kearney, and today my guest is very special. Her name is Emma Griffin. Well, I just want to say all of my guests are obviously special, but I was so excited to get to interview an actual practicing witch. So, my guest is Emma Griffin. She is a modern witch, intuitive channeler, and she also does some guidance medicine readings and sprinkles in a little tarot here and there. She has a sisterhood where they are allowed to express their most magical selves. And oh my gosh, if I could tell my younger self who was reading Harry Potter addictively that I was going to go on to interview someone who's actually putting magic into practice in life, my younger self would scream. How freaking cool. So, Emma wrote the book, The Witch's Way Home, and it is basically a guide for everything you need to start to get in touch with your own inner witch. And this was the book I did not know that I needed. I actually listened to it first on the Hay House app, and it was suggested to me around Halloween time. So even just getting to interview Emma was such a manifestation and dream come true. So, anyways, I hope that you can gain as much magic from this as possible because I certainly did. And yeah, enjoy the episode and I'll see you in there. Welcome, Emma. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you for asking me. I'm really excited.
Yes. So, first off, I just want to start with a little bit about what you do. So, you're a modern witch, an intuitive channeler, and you also offer guidance medicine readings. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so can you tell me a little bit about how you got started in the space and what exactly that entails?
I've been a witch now for 27 years. My mum was a witch, so I've been brought up in this sort of magical household. And I stepped into the path of witchcraft when I was about 19 years old because I was told by a tarot reader that I wouldn't be able to have children, which a tarot reader shouldn't really say. I knew I wanted to have children, so I stole my mum's witchcraft books and stepped into the path as a Wiccan witch. And I did everything really traditionally, and I did magic every single day until I fell pregnant 9 months after. And then I had my daughter, and then 3 years later, I had my son. And my mum always told me not to come out, not to tell anybody that you're a witch because you would get mocked. It's not safe. You won't be able to get a proper job. All these things. My mum passed in 2020, and around that time, I started to share on social media, sort of, well, Instagram mainly, about what I do in my private life, my witchcraft practice, and it literally exploded, absolutely exploded. And everything that my mum said that I would get all this hate and stuff like that, it was completely the opposite. I was welcomed and people were really lovely. I think I've only had like 4 nasty messages in that time, so it's not been too bad.
4 is definitely a low number. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it was, it's something that helped you in your personal life.
Just helped me.
Yes, and despite what your mom said about not being able to get a job, you're doing that full time. So that really just speaks to how much this magic resonates with people. You wrote a book called The Witch's Way Home, which we're going to talk about a lot. And in the book, you mention that no real definition of a witch. So it's really personal to the person, the witch. So I'm curious, what is your definition of a witch?
My definition is a witch can be any gender. And it's somebody who's really done all the work on themselves, so they really know who they are and what matters to them, their values. It's somebody who works with the world around them and within them. They probably work with the moon. They probably work with candles and the elements and herbs and animals. And they work with probably the spirit world as well, the divination. Yeah, this a person that manifests all the stuff that's good. That's my take on it.
I love that. I love that so much. It sounds like to you, it's somebody who's really collaborative with the natural energies of the world. And I love that. And you mentioned that there are many different types of witches out there. So can you name some of the most common witches and also which ones you most identify with?
Yeah, I mean, you can have a kitchen witch, hearth or home witch, cosmic witch, divination witch, green witch, traditional witch. I started as a Wiccan witch, so more traditional path. But then over the years, I mean, it's been 27 years, so I've sort of dabbled in other parts of witchcraft. So now I think if you wanted to label it, then I would be classed as an eclectic witch.
And what does that mean?
My base is very traditional. Sometimes I do kitchen magic, and sometimes I'll be a green witch, and sometimes I'll be a lunar witch or a divination witch, or, you can dabble into things, but sometimes when you start the path of being a witch, you might resonate with one more strongly. Like my daughter, who's 25, she's a sea witch.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Love that. And it sounds like yours allows you to kind of flow with whatever's speaking to you at that moment, which is really awesome. And so kind of going off of what you said a little bit earlier about how your mom was really afraid of what people were going to think. In your book, you talk about the witch wound, and I'd love to know, what is the witch wound and how does this manifest in our daily life?
The witch wound comes from the burning times, and it's where many women, there is some men as well, but many women were killed and put to death by hanging in fire, and because they were classed as witches. Now, not all of these, probably most of them weren't witches. They were healers, and they were midwives or farmers or doing something normal. And they were killed really harshly. And in the villages, obviously, other women would out other women and say that she's a witch or she's a witch to protect their own life and protect their own children. So it was a very scary time. And I believe that we all, men and women, carry this witch wound within us because it's in our DNA. Our ancestors would have witnessed it or felt the fear with it or worried about their own family. And so how it resonates in our lives now, mainly women, is women will not want to be seen as their true self. Women won't speak their truth. Women will hide their spiritual or woo-woo gifts because they don't want to be cast as weird or different. So, and women judge other women. That's the witch wound.
Wow. So definitely shows up and has an impact for sure. And I think now, luckily, it seems like the woo-woo stuff is becoming more normalized, which is great. It's a good feeling to be in touch with our spirituality. So with that being said, what would you recommend as some first steps to start noticing where the witch wound is coming up for us and beginning to kind of heal that and unravel that?
I would really be honest with ourselves and see how, I mean, nobody's perfect. I'm sure everybody in this world has judged somebody else or felt envious or jealous, or so I would be very honest with ourselves and see how we're thinking about other women, and then show some compassion. I would also see where you are pulling yourself back, where you're not in your own power and where you're stopping yourself from living your aligned path. Because if you're stopping yourself and you're worried because I'm going to feel silly or I'm going to get the mickey taken out of me or it's just I don't feel safe, then that's the direction you need to head in. Cure.
Okay, so listening to those areas in our life where we don't feel like we're being authentic and showing up authentically.
Yeah. But be compassionate on yourself. It can be baby steps and you definitely got to face the fear.
Yep. That definitely makes sense. And in your book, you talk about sisterhood. And I think this could be an important part of healing the witch wound is having a community of sisters. And so I'm curious, why is that important? And how did you go about cultivating your own sisterhood?
Yeah, well, I have a lovely sisterhood of friends anyway, and my daughter's a part of that. But I also realized since 2020, more than ever, we need connection. We need connection with other women. And, our ancestors would have sat around the fire and helped other women in our villages, and we would bring up their children together while the men go off and hunt, and we would create this nice home space and share stories. So I feel this really needed now, especially what's going on in the world. So I did set it up in some women's circles and made them a bit more witty. And what I loved is women would come with a friend or their sister, but then the women that came on their own who were terrified and they come into that space and then they sit down and they're full of their witch wound. They're terrified and they're worried about how they're dressed and they're so I sort my hair out. But then after 5 minutes of other women sharing stories and holding space for that, it is absolutely beautiful. And then those women leave feeling really held and seen and supported. And I think that is wonderful magic that we can offer other women. It's really
I love that. Yeah, community is so important. And like you said, in the last few years, that's kind of become a lot more apparent is how much we need not just a community of people, but people that really see us and that we really connect with. And so that's beautiful that you offer a way for people to get together with this, common interest. I'm curious for the women that come that maybe are a little scared or a little skeptical, what would you say are the most common misconceptions about witchcraft and what it means?
They think we're going to be naked and drumming around a fire and probably kill some crows and put blood on our face and, all this stuff you see in the film, drink children and, all this stuff. I think everyone's terrified from the films. It's really bad. So, I can't even think of, probably only through Harry Potter, was there any witches that were actually nice and attractive and, more normal. So, yeah, they're scared of that.
That makes sense. I actually just recently watched Harry Potter and it made me just love magic. That is a great portrayal of what good magic looks like. So that's great. So for people who want to get started practicing witchcraft, I know in your book you mention that you really don't need any tools or anything special because it's really just about you and the magic that's inside of you.
Yeah.
With that being said, though, what are the benefits to having some tools? What are your favorites? What would you recommend for somebody who's looking to get started?
It's nice to have the tools, but it isn't needed. You can use a saucepan instead of a cauldron, I think my favorite tool is definitely my cauldron, which is behind me on my altar, because I'm banishing and I'm releasing and I'm burning incense and I'm house cleansing and cleansing myself. It's a wonderful tool. Candles, it's a really cheap tool to have. You can do so much magic within them. And I would really look into harvesting your own, like growing your herbs, growing flowers and harvesting them, making your own smoke wands and using things like that to cleanse your home with and actually do magic with. Nothing really is expensive that I've mentioned. You can go out and buy, the full-on things, but just those few tools is enough to get you started. But it is a personal, unique journey. So I guess when people start this path, I always advise people to research as much as you can, research into the history of witchcraft and the witch wound, and then document things that resonate with you personally in your own journal, your own book of magic. That's a much better way, because every author will have their own take on what they like to do and stuff like that, but you have to take what resonates for you.
That's one of the things I love so much about your book, because I've read a lot of spiritual self-help kind of books, and I loved how you continued to emphasize that it's a unique journey. It's about the person, and there's no one size fits all. So I love that you laid it out that way, because you really give so many different options, so many different tools, and I found it really helpful. So I love that
Thank
about your
you.
book. Yeah.
Thank you. And I believe there's no right and wrong. No witch can tell you that you're doing something wrong because it's so unique.
Yes, exactly. And we're all on a unique journey. And like
Yeah.
you said, different things resonate with different people. So I think that's great. One of the other things you talk about in your book is creating an altar or some sort of sacred space to practice your witchcraft. And I'm curious how this could look for people, because I know you mentioned there's many different ways to do it. You don't need to have a special room. So can you talk about maybe some different options for altars and why they can help with your magic practice?
Yeah, I think when my children were little, it would be a mantelpiece, a fireplace. It would be top of a chest of drawers, anywhere that I could have space away from the children so I could actually go and work with it. Now I'm lucky that my kids are adults. So I have this little room, and obviously that whole unit there is my altar. So I have a place to do my magic. But some of my clients have had little boxes from under their bed, and they'll pull it out and they'll set up their altar daily. I have many altars, so I have like one on my coffee table, I have one in my kitchen, I have a big one in my garden. So as I like to be able to move around, I'm an Aquarius, so I don't like routine. So I like to use different areas for different things. It's just a space really that you can really focus and see what you're calling in, or see what you're working with, or what you're wanting to let go of. It's a space where you can honor your ancestors. It's a really good space if you've lost someone in the spirit world. So you can like leave gifts for your loved ones in the spirit world. It's also really helpful to celebrate all the different Sabbaths, the witchy holidays, so you can decorate them and feel like you're really celebrating them. And it's a great space to actually perform your magic.
That's great. Yeah. And I loved in your book too, you talk about using different elements or things to decorate with. So I have a little bowl of sea glass because I love the ocean. And so when I built my altar, I'm going to put that on it. And I knew I got them with no purpose in mind. I kind of just kept them. And then I read your book and I'm like, perfect. I'll put these on my altar. Yeah, it worked out great. So for the altar, you mentioned it's a place where you can practice your magic. And in the book, you talk about rituals versus spells. Can you talk about what each of those are and what the difference is?
Yeah, spell is something, I'm going to say it. A spell is more of a quick, you know exactly what you want to get out of the situation. So say if it's a love spell or a self-love spell, you know what you want to call in. So therefore you can gather things to do with different colors. It could be different candle colors. It can be different elements to work with. Like you can have fire for passion, or if you want a more of emotional sort of relationship with somebody, you could bring in some water. Yeah, you can use different things like that. Obviously, all the herbs will amplify your intention. A ritual is something that is slower. You are present in a spell and a ritual, but a ritual is something a bit longer, a bit more if you want to set it up. So a ritual could be, like we're coming up for Imbolc, so on the 1st and the 2nd. So you might want to perform an Imbolc ritual to celebrate that actual move through the seasons. You might want to do a ritual for your birthday or something like that. This is normally a bigger milestone or something you want to celebrate or create within yourself.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, ritual is more time consuming and maybe less specific, maybe?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
My rituals are normally more beautiful. I like to make everything beautiful and visual, and it just gets me more into that zone so I can be more in the present moment. Whereas spell is something, it's more like a recipe. It's more like building things together for an outcome.
Okay. And how would you recommend choosing a spell or a ritual? Is there I know you have some in your book. Is there a place where you went to find these spells, or did you kind of just go based on your intuition and what made sense for you?
My mum taught me quite a lot of my magic and stuff, but I think the best spell, the most important spell to start off with is the protection spell. And there's many different types of protection spells out there. I would start there and I would start with the Wheel of the Year and do a ritual on each of the Sabbaths. And if you start there, that's pretty good. But you could also do a self-love spell, or you could do a wealth spell, or a manifestation that you want to call in. You could bring in some herbs and colors of candles and elements for that too. Just simple things to start off with.
Mm-hmm.
But people are always scared about starting a spell. If you just do something simple first and then see the outcome, you get more confidence to then move forward.
Okay. So starting small.
That's small. And then also as you start learning about the herbs and the different tools that you can use, or how you can use like a mantra, or how you can meditate first to get yourself really into that intention, all those things help. And then you can start making spells yourself.
That's probably when it starts to get really fun, when you feel comfortable enough to say, okay, this is what I'm going to say, this is what I'm doing. It's probably when you realize you're most in your authentic witch self. That's really cool. So, in your book, you talk a lot about working with the elements of nature. This is sort of a four-part question, so I'll just go one by one about the different elements. So in the book, you talk about working with the moon phases. Can you tell us what the moon phases are and how we can work with them to manifest or use our magic and really amplify our power?
Yeah, well, I'll share the two main phases that I work with every month, because that's, I mean, people can use all the different, mood phases, but there's two that I feel that, because like people have busy lives, that are important. So I would start with a new moon. So a couple of days before the new moon, while I'm having a cup of tea, I would just sit and ponder and think, what do I want to call in for the next month? And I'll start thinking about stuff and start thinking about like my career, my home life, relationships, and like a big wish. I always have a big wish. So that could be like Hawaii or something like that. So just start feeling into things like that. So when it comes to the new moon, whatever star sign it is, tells me what element this is also for the full moon as well. But each new moon or full moon will have a star sign. And in the book, I give like a table so that you can pick the star sign, you can see which one it is. So say it's a new moon Aquarius, it will then tell you all the different emotions, all the characteristics of that. So you can use that kind of like a recipe into your intentions or your wishes for that new moon. So then I would do that. So depending if it's, say if it's a Taurus new moon, then I would want to use some earth and some grounding and maybe bring some plants in or some food and things like that. Okay. So then when I've done that, I've set that out to the universe, and then we have a 2-week window. So within that new moon, that 2 weeks or 10 days, that's my period of the month where I say yes to things. That's when I'm more sociable. That's when I'm launching things or doing podcasts or going on adventures. It's my go, go, go time.
Mm-hmm.
And as we come towards the full moon, I start to slow down a bit. And a full moon is where I do a proper ritual, so it's longer. And I use a full moon for gratitude. So I sort of think about what I'm grateful for that's happened within that month. And I would have, depending again on what star sign, it helps me with what I need. And then I would do a ritual, let go of things that no longer serve me, cleanse my home. And then a couple of days after, when we're in the darkness, that's my favorite time. And that's like my time of, it's almost like hibernation. So I go inwards, I rest, I heal, I do shadow work, I journal a lot more. And that's when I do any banishing magic. So that's if I really want something to leave out of my life, then that's when I will perform that kind of spell. So those two moons give me that lovely balance. So I'm not always on the go, go, go.
I love that. That's great because there often is 2 weeks out of the month where I naturally just want to hibernate anyways. And I'm curious for you too. Would you say that this happens more naturally for you now where you're kind of just synced up with the moon, or do you remind yourself?
Yeah, sometimes I'm very aware of my thoughts, and that comes from my age, but I'm very aware of how I am and what I value and what's going on in my mind and stuff like that. So if I've got a lot of busy thoughts or negative, or I'm not speaking nicely about myself, or I've got a lot of fear, I'll usually notice that, and I'll usually ask my astrologer friend, what's going on? There's something going on in the world. And it's usually something to do with that that's actually making me come up with all these emotions. So I feel safer. So that I would always journal that. But yeah, it does help me, and I am more in tuned. And I think by having those 2 times of the month, that really gives me that structure to hold space for myself, which is important.
Yeah, and it probably gives you you're able to check in more. And when you're writing, you can see. I like that idea because it's in shorter spurts versus when I try to look back at a whole year and I'm like, oh my God, I don't even remember what happened this year. So I love that. Have like, if you're writing it down, you'll have a record of it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Check it at the end of the year.
Yes. Then you can compile everything and figure out what the themes were. So that's really great. Um, let's talk about the elements of the earth. So fire, water, earth, air. What do they signify, and how can we use them in our magical practice depending on what our intention is?
Okay, so if you wanted, my favorite element, it has to be fire, because fire I can activate, but fire can also banish. So fire is a really good one. So within that, if there's something I want to manifest, I would use probably the right colored candle. So say if it's love or self-love, I would use a pink candle. And then the flame of that would be the element that I'm using to activate things. So I will burn into that. If I was going to banish something, I would use a black candle and I would still use fire. Or if it was more of emotions, I would move through to like a bowl of water, and then I can put instead of burning the paper, I could put it into the bowl of water. If I wanted to plant seeds or have inspiration or build something, so when I was writing my book, I would put all of my wishes into soil and use so that it will bloom and grow. Any ideas or communication or dreaming and visioning, I would use smoke. To be honest, that's probably the one element I don't use as much within my practice other than cleansing. But yeah, you can use all different ways.
That's so cool. And I'm a Sagittarius, so I have to say fire is my favorite element as well. It's just so lovely to light things and
Yeah, it is.
flame. I mean, there's just nothing wrong with it. So that's great. Okay. And you mentioned a little earlier herbs.
Yeah.
What are some of the most common herbs and what do they do?
I would definitely have in your cupboard rosemary, because rosemary can be substitutes. If you were reading a spell and you're like, oh, I really want to do that, but I don't have time, or I don't have basil, or you can use rosemary. So rosemary is really good. And if you're tired, rosemary is lovely to fill a bath and just lay there in a bath because it will help you. There's so much with herbs. With wealth and abundance, there's rosemary, basil, cinnamon. You can mix all different things together. If you want something to be sweet and romantic and nice and gentle, you can add honey. If you want something to be fast and get rid of something or call something in, you want to be really quick action, then I would use pepper or chili chili flakes and things like that. So yeah, it really depends on what you're really interested in to what herbs that you want to start gathering. Definitely lavender, chamomile, rosemary are a really good starter kit.
Okay. And does it matter where you get the herbs from? So let's say maybe you don't want to grow them yourself or you don't have a garden or something like that. How would you recommend getting herbs that are, I guess, pure, if you will?
Yeah, it's hard and ethical. I think, I mean, I grow quite a few, but then sometimes, I mean, my rosemary's just completely died. So I don't have a rosemary bush at the moment, so I have to get a new one. But I have different things that like resins, like frankincense resin I use and myrrh I use. So I would buy that from a shop in Glastonbury, which is really good, called Star Child. So I know that that is ethically sourced and I like to help an independent shop. Like go to a supermarket and you can buy the little spice jars and stuff like that. I have a lot of kitchen cupboard stuff as well. In the summer, I like to grow my lavender and chamomile. So I'll be harvesting that in autumn and then I would dry it and put it into jars. So I do a lot of harvesting as well. And yeah, one of the other things you need in your cupboard is salt. Salt's great for protection and cleansing, and that's cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it doesn't really matter if you can't grow them, go to the supermarket and just get little herb pots, that'd be fine.
okay. That's helpful for someone like me who does not have a green thumb. So maybe someday, but
Someday.
until then,
I don't know about you, but in our supermarkets, you can buy fresh herbs.
mm-hmm.
Buy like bags of fresh rosemary and they already come really nicely cut into the right sort of size.
Yeah.
That's brilliant to tie up with cotton and make your own smoke wand for cleansing.
Yep. I love that idea. There's a little co-op near where I live and they have locally grown herbs and they're in the little packages, but they're, full fresh. So definitely will try
That's a good
those.
way of doing it.
Yeah, great. One last element, I guess we could talk about, or part of the earth, trees. You talk about the magic of trees. So can you expand on that a little bit? Why magical?
I love trees and the forest is my favorite space. Each tree comes with different wisdom and I look at trees as actual beings. And I've done a lot of past life regression on people and some people do remember being trees. And you can actually, if you've had like an off day or you just need to go for a walk and be in nature, you could go into the forest and pick a tree or a park and go up there. Normally, it's better to take your shoes and socks off so you're completely connected to the earth. But you can either hug the tree or place your left hand on the tree and your right hand on your heart and just ask the tree, like introduce yourself and ask for wisdom and see what you feel. See what comes into your mind's eye. See how you feel love and how instantly you feel relaxed. It's like the best therapy. Yeah.
Before I read your book too, I went to Seattle and I don't know if you've ever been there, but they have a lot of trees, a lot of nature. And I was going on a hike and there was this huge tree and I was by myself and it was just calling to me. I just wanted to sit on it. So makes a lot of
Be with it. Yeah.
Yes, yes. They are beings. I agree with you. So really magical. Do you remember the first time you ever went to a tree for wisdom? Do you remember the first message you ever got from a tree?
Oh gosh, I was really little because my mum taught me to connect to trees. So I've been doing that since, I don't know, 4 or 5. It's something I've always done.
Yeah,
I used to like protect trees, and if anyone was going to cut trees down, she would get a seed from it and regrow it. So I have a beautiful bonsai tree that's about 35 years old, and it's actually from the family of the major oak from Robin Hood.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, my mum saved it, so that's one of my precious trees that I own.
my gosh, I love that. That's
It has really little oat leaves on it, so I keep them every year. I know.
oh my gosh, that's adorable. Bonsai trees are the best. Oh my gosh. Cool. So cool. Let's talk about animals, animal guides versus familiars, because I know familiars, I feel like I've been hearing about familiars a lot more recently. When I was younger, I had a black cat and I didn't know, but looking back, I'm like, he was definitely my familiar. But I have a dog now. I love her so much, but we're definitely not on the same, like,
No, you would.
yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about familiars.
Yeah.
I'm curious first what they are. And do you think that you need to be in a certain state to find your familiar, to attract your familiar to you?
There's a lot of that kind of chat going around on social media. I believe your familiar comes to you when it's needed to come to you. That's important. I'm soon to be 49, and since 4 years, I think he's 4 years old. My familiar's down here. See, my familiar is 4 years old, and he came to me just when my dad had passed, and then when my mum told me she was got cancer. So he literally came into my life at, I feel, the divine time. I've been, obviously, my mum and dad rescued animals. So when I was a child, we had 15 pets. So we had lots of dogs and cats. So my mum showed me her familiar, and hers was very special. So I knew about familiars, and I've had my own dogs and cats before, but nothing has been like Walter, my familiar's little chihuahua. And he just calls to me. I just had this desire that I needed to have a certain try. I had to look a certain way, and I wanted to call him Walter. And then he came into my life, and he just needed me. And he follows me everywhere. And whenever I do any magic, or I sit on the floor and I get all my ritual stuff ready, or all my spell stuff, he will literally come and put his paws on and near my cauldron. He also can see spirits and stuff as well. He knows what I'm thinking. And you have like this special, what I would class as a past life connection. You have a deeper connection. I probably deeper connection with him than anybody else in my family. Like, he really gets me.
That's how I felt about my cat too.
Yeah, and I'd be literally lost without him. But it's almost like a telepathic kind of thing. I mean, all animals are wonderful. I mean, I've got 4 dogs, 2 cats here now, but Walter is another level.
Yep. And you can just feel that.
Yeah, and my husband would agree with that. He is another level.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen you post him on social media, and he's so
Nice.
he's so cute. And he's perfect size. You really can't take him anywhere.
Yeah, perfect. And also, my kids left home, so he came into my life when I needed to nurture and still be a mum. So I'm permanently rocking him like a baby and stuff like that. He's really good. He fixes a lot of wounds.
I love that. I love that so much. So in terms of that, then you can't really force.
Totally forgot to. Well, just know.
Yeah.
I mean, if you are a practicing witch and you really want a familiar, then you can actually just state that out. I would do a ritual for that and tell the universe that you're ready, and then keep an eye out for what crosses your path or comes to you.
Mm.
Just really feel and sort of look at the animal. I mean, it could be a rabbit, or it could be a hamster, but you'll have this connection. You'll have this like knowing. It's almost like they're very wise. It's really weird. You look at them, it's like, you're really wise. You really get life.
Mm-hmm.
So you've had this connection with them before.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's interesting because when I got my cat that I now know was my familiar, I was young. I was a kid, but I was just so in tune with, like, I must have just been so in tune with the universe. And he came at a good time. There was a lot going on. And when I look back, I still get a little sad about him, even though I know he's still around. But yeah, it's really magical and to have one. And I think it's great that you can put the intention into the universe and
Yeah, us.
And ask. Yep. Love that. So what's the difference between just an animal guide? How do we know if we have
We all have a spiritual team. So a spiritual team can be different beings from different dimensions. So we obviously have our ancestors, we have our loved ones that we know in this lifetime who have passed. They could be, part of your team. You have your own spirit guide, and that's not really a loved one. It sometimes is, but it's not really. It's somebody who comes, because obviously your spirit guide comes and goes, new ones come in. And it's normally a spirit that has been in the spirit world for a long time and chooses to help you on a certain task or a certain path in your life. Then you have ascended masters, you have angels, you have archangels, but we also have animals too. And obviously we've had past lives, so we would have been maybe an animal or a tree or, something like that. So if you constantly dream, say, about a penguin or a fox or a bear or something like that, and you're constantly seeing images of that animal and you're wondering about things and you want an answer on your path and you're just having it in your mind, and suddenly there'd be a picture of a bear, that would be your yes. So that's your guide there. And within the book, I tell you how to connect to your animal guides and your spirit guides and learn about these dimensions. But it's really helpful to have that guidance from those other dimensions.
Have you found that our guides or animal guides or spirit guides, do they shift over time, or are they usually pretty fixed with our current life that we're in?
Sometimes they'll stay with you for a decade. Sometimes they'll stay with you for 6 weeks, a couple of months, 6 months. It really depends on where you are in your life's path and what you're needing at that time. But there's also help, obviously, from your ancestors too. But your best guidance is from your soul, because your soul knows where you've been and what you need to do in this lifetime and where you're going from that. It's your best.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all within us. The soul is so wise. So with that being said, it's important to be able to connect with our soul. So what are some things that you recommend for us to do to be able to reconnect with our soul and harness our power that way?
I would learn how to get into the present moment as much as possible. So journaling, meditation is a wonderful practice. And it's really important in my daily life. People sometimes say to me, well, I don't have time because I have 4 kids or I've got a job, but everyone has time to have a cup of tea. They can light a candle in front of them and they can put their left hand on their heart and just ask themselves, how am I feeling? Where am I holding stress? And allow your soul to gently answer. Also, your body will show you things as well. Ask your soul, what do I want to release this week, or what do I want to call in, or where do I need to set boundaries? Slow down. And if somebody asks you, do you want to do this today? Do you want to do that? Should we do this? Slow down. Your left hand on your heart calls you back into your body. It allows that moment just to catch your breath and then ask the question and allow your soul to answer. And always trust.
In your experience, is it pretty obvious when our soul answers? Because sometimes I've tried to do this and I'm like nothing's coming.
Mine.
I've tried the automatic writing. I know you talk about it in your book, and it's hard to not feel like you're making it up. So how long does it take?
Practice.
Yeah.
If you did some connecting to your breath and do a couple of deep inhales and exhales, and you feel nice and relaxed, and you have the candles ready with some incense, that would help lower your energy. Ask your soul questions. The first thing that comes, and also your intuition, your soul, is always gentle. It'll never tell you to, act quick or take that job or do this, leave him, do that. It's very gentle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Your spirit guide is more bossy.
Okay, interesting.
Your
Spirit guides push you.
slower, softer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. Yes. And I've had I've had some experiences connecting with my soul, but definitely not as much as I would like. So,
Practice daily when you have a cup of tea, just while you're drinking that cup of tea,
mm,
close your eyes and ask yourself some questions.
okay, I'm gonna try that. So once you feel that you've connected with your soul, you also talk about the different psychic gifts. So, what are the psychic gifts and how can we develop them?
There's many different psychic gifts. There's different clairs, is what they're called, but you can have this inner knowing or like a premonition, you know something's going to happen. You could hold someone's jewelry or listen to someone talking, you'll suddenly see in your mind or have a feeling, oh, this is going to happen, or you should do this. You know, that's something you can develop. You could, you might hear things as well. You might be like doing this lovely alpha state of doing nothing, like washing your pots or ironing or driving. You'll suddenly hear something. You know, there's many different ways that the spirit world and different dimensions can talk to us. So it's just, again, practicing meditation is the key to everything, to actually quieten our mind so that it allows all this stuff to come in so that we can actually feel these different frequencies that we have around us and obviously within us with our soul. There's many ways of doing that.
Would you say that the gifts that we're able to develop are fixed, or could we develop all of them if we really wanted to?
Yes, I think we all have them. I mean, I've taught a very normal man who is as manly as you can think of, and he was mocking it. And he was like, there's no such thing. There's no way I can connect to my granddad in the spirit world. And within an hour of me like guiding him through, he got something. So I believe we can all do this. It's just practicing and also trusting some of the different abilities. You know, you might be stronger in a certain one than the other, but it just takes practice to really hone in and sort of play with them and get to sort of know what you can and can't do. But it's just remembering, because we were born with these gifts. It's not a unique gift. You know, we've all got them.
Yeah. I love that. We're both human and spirit. So it's really cool to think about, and I love that people are getting more intentional with realizing what we really are.
Yeah. I mean, I like to think of it as, you know, when we were like a toddler or a very young child, we all like to draw. We don't love drawing. But then over the years, as sort of society and school and parents and life, that's sort of taken out of us.
Yes.
Exactly the same thing.
Yes. And what's interesting too is when we're kids, we like to do things just because it's fun. But now it's like, oh, if I'm not good at this, I shouldn't do it. I've recently been like loving to dance. I'm not a good dancer by any means, but I'm just like, this is fun. Like, I don't care, you know? So I, yeah, and it's so interesting how we put all these expectations of ourselves and we think we can't do things that we're not good at, but we each have a unique skill set and a unique perspective that we can bring to really everything that we do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
And Dr. Seuss too. I talked to an artist an art dealer a long time ago. He said that Dr. Seuss used his unique, some may say, different drawing, and he made it his whole personality, and his books became so famous. Yeah, very, very cool.
I love that.
But yeah. So along with psychic gifts and knowing that we're all spirit, how can we connect to higher dimensions? And if you don't mind, what are the different dimensions that we can connect to?
So we have obviously the earth, which is beneath it, and we have a layer of rocks and minerals and crystals. You know, you can work with those. That's a base dimension. Then we have another one which is called the plants and the rivers and the sea and the oceans and the animals. And it comes to us as people. We also have energy centers running through us. That's another dimension that we can work with and tap into and sort of learn how to heal within us. Then we have our intuition as well. Then we have our aura, and then it goes up into we got the spirit world, we have the universe, so we have higher than, we've got angels, archangels, ascended masters, and then we have what I call the council, who is a group of spiritual beings who look after our soul contracts in this record in this library. And then we have source, or what people call God. Now we can tap into all of these dimensions and gain wisdom from all of these things. There's no time, there's no sort of like road. We can just move throughout all these dimensions. Most people are interested in connecting to the spirit realm because they like to look at that. But you can have, there's also, within the universe we have ETs and aliens, which is obviously really trendy right now. But you can meditate and you can suddenly see I do a thing each week called an astral meditation, which is a longer meditation, which I just sort of go into wherever I want to go and allow my soul to choose where we're going. And within that, I have seen ETs, I have seen angels, and I've spoken to them, I've done healing with them. And, it's a wonderful space to be in, as well as the spirit world. But again, you see, it's all to do with meditation and practicing and being in that present moment so that you're aware that all these frequencies you can actually tap into and work with them and bring them into your daily life.
It all comes
that as well.
Yeah, it all comes back to meditation.
Yeah.
It's questions, yes. So I'm curious then, how did you develop your meditation practice? Because when I meditate now, I use the guided meditations. I'll use like an app usually, but my goal would be eventually to just be self-sufficient, if you will.
Yeah, I did. Well, my dad taught me how to meditate. So he used to travel the world and go to different cultures and stuff. So he would bring back all these different things to help us meditate. So he taught me to hold beads and count the beads as I worked with my breath. Did put a tape on at the time, wasn't a CD, it was like a little cassette tape, and we'd listen to a guided one, and I loved it. And I'm very creative, so I would visualize what I was seeing, what this person was telling me where to go. So that really helped me. I sort of moved through to actually just daily just connecting to my breath. Sometimes it's 5 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. I'll have no music on and I would literally just sit on the floor. I don't ever lay down because I fall asleep. And I would just place my hands up like that on my lap and just connect to my breath and just clear my mind. That can be hard. And sometimes it still pops in, what should I cook for dinner tonight? Or I need to go buy this from the supermarket, or, all daily stuff. So I always place a black cinema screen in my mind and I visualize that to wipe out anything else. That makes you go black. Then you can focus on that breath. And just clear your thoughts so you become just one with self. That's a beautiful meditation. When I do my astral travel one, I make a little playlist. So I like the music from the film Interstellar. Yeah. So I put that on my headphones and I will just go to have music that has no words in it. And each time the song changes, I literally shift into different places. So I actually visualize, I say it's in my book, there's a whole thing in my book, but once you can do the black cinema screen, you can place on that cinema screen a white door. And then when you're ready, you just go through that door. Then wherever you go in, you trust. And you allow yourself to move through that. You're obviously protecting yourself before you go into doing that. So you're calling forward, the highest good, love and light. There's nothing awful can happen in that. But you'll come across animals, you'll come across weird things. Like I've seen a beautiful forest with 3 moons in the sky and a hologram of a whale that fly past. You see really weird things. I had a client of mine who fell asleep, cuddled up to a dragon. It's just really bizarre things. And then when you're ready, you just open your eyes. So I always have my journal next to me. So when I open my eyes, I can write down everything that I've seen, and then I'll either draw it or. So I've got a whole record of everything I've experienced.
That is so cool. I know
I'm addicted to.
Yeah, I know astral travel is really in right now and I want to do it. I love the idea of using the interstellar music because it's space, it's a
Yeah.
space vibe, and
Yeah.
that's kind of what you're doing.
And there's loads of music. I do like the Harry Potter soundtracks. So sometimes if I want to have more of a magical one, I'll listen to something like that. That music there helps me.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing.
And is there a certain time of day that you find it easier to do the travel, or are you just you're so used to it by now that you
Teeny, so I'm
whatever?
I think it really depends on your lifestyle. If you can do it in the morning, do it in the morning. But it's also quite nice to end the day. So sometimes I'll do it first thing. Sometimes I'll do it, well, quite a lot of times, like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Sometimes it's nice after a bath or before a bath. Never before I go to bed because I just fall asleep. But yeah, it really depends on you and your lifestyle.
Do you usually have a certain intention when you're doing it, or are you just doing it for the experience, whatever comes up?
But the astral travel is just for whatever I want to experience. Sometimes if I want to speak to somebody in the spirit world, I'll set the intention and ask them to come forward before I go in. But yeah, normally I just go with the flow. It's more
So,
exciting.
yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool. Yeah, I think learning to relax and just go with the flow, it definitely
Trusting.
yes.
Trust.
And that's
Moving forward, you suddenly go through a white door and be in a meadow, and lots of people get stuck there. Move through it. Okay, what's in the meadow? What's the weather like?
can you feel the difference between when you're in your head, maybe when you're feeling stuck, or
Yeah,
versus when you're moving through it?
yeah. It'll feel heavy, and also everything's not clear.
Mm.
But when you're fully into it and trusting, and you're like, oh, I'm in a meadow, and then you'll see all the colors, or you might suddenly see butterflies, and you'll move on to the next.
Are you focusing on your breath during this, or are you
Just doing.
you're just
Yeah, I've already done my breath work first for like 5 minutes,
mm-hmm.
and then I would just go. And also, when you come across people or animals, then I always ask them in my mind, do you have a message for me? So, you can do things like that. And also, when you just open your eyes, you suddenly panic. Well, I do. I panic. Think, oh, I've been gone for hours. And then you look at the time and you've done half an hour. So there's no sense of time.
It's so cool. It's so cool.
Yeah, my daughter does it.
I love
Yeah,
it. Do you
that's
have to do
all
it
in my book.
together?
Yeah, we have done it together. Yeah. Yeah.
Does your husband do it too, or no?
No, his mind's too busy. He can meditate, but if I guide him, he can release it, but his head's too busy. He
Yeah.
would be able to if you practice, but he's a
Doesn't
guy.
doesn't want to.
He's a Dorian. So.
It's not for everyone, I guess. Oh my gosh. I'm sure there's so many questions that I didn't ask you that I want to.
Really, really well.
I really could talk to you for hours. I love your book so much. So I guess I like to kind of end with this question sometimes. What would the world look like if we all embraced our witchy selves and were just flowing and practicing magic in ways that resonate with us?
I believe we wouldn't have depression, we wouldn't have anxiety, we wouldn't have all this war and fighting and anger. Everything would be a lot more peaceful, happy, filled. People would live longer. It would be a really beautiful space to be in.
It would be. It definitely would be.
Yeah.
Hopefully your book is the first step towards that. And for listeners that are resonating, would like to work with you, would like to get your book, where is the best place for them to reach you?
You can get The Witch's Way Home in any bookstore online, and you can find me on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, and my website. And all of it is Emma Griffin Witch. I do have a lot of scam accounts, so be careful which ones that you find, but you can normally tell which one's the real me. So
Yes, I did. I was a victim to one of those scam ones.
I've
They're,
hundreds.
Their content's not as good, so
You can tell in the captions.
yes, definitely. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me for this magical conversation. As usual, all of the links to all of Emma's pages will be below. The link to her book will also be below. And I hope that this inspired you to really get back in touch with your true self and also to get back in touch with nature, especially in the winter. I think it's easy to forget about nature and forget about the outdoors. But as Emma mentioned, tracking the moon cycles is such a powerful way to regularly check in with ourselves and to put our intentions into the universe on a somewhat regular basis. So, thanks again. I loved this episode. I love magic. I've always been somebody that just has believed in magic, and this just further reaffirmed that belief. So hopefully you're feeling more magical than you were an hour ago, and I hope to see you back here next week or whenever I post the next one. And much love to you all.